All right, let me log in.
Oh, need to see the chat. No. No. Oh yeah, I did have to do that before.
If you wanted to, once you guys get it started, there's a more link. You could live stream to Facebook. I don't know if we want to do it on this one just because we haven't practiced it, but
we could try it on the next one if you want, or we could do it on this one.
we should do another webinar, just us and practice.
Yes, a webinar on how to do webinars. Like,
yes.
We should have video say that. Like, let's use that. Let's do this. Let's look at this.
One of our videos needs to be a mixture between Zoom and Inception.
It just started recording. Hopefully you can stop. Should I stop it for now? It just automatically stopped. It just automatically did it.
You'll be able to start it back up.
Yeah. Okay, good morning, everybody. Almost good afternoon. Let me know that you're out there by posting in the comments. We'll give everybody a minute or two to get on. I'm very sad that we're talking on a Zoom conference for the reasons that we are, but I've heard from a lot of you on my Facebook and texting and email saying that you were going to be joining in. So it's nice to see everybody this way. When this is all over, the Orlando Law Group's going to have a party so that I could see you all in person. Basically, the point of today is to answer as many questions as we can about the coronavirus, asset protection, and all the things that are going to come up based upon the downturn in the economy that we know we're going to see. I know my people called it Ask Jennifer Anything, and that's because we still are trying to keep our sense of humor during this very difficult time. But to the extent that if you ask me anything that's crazy, I may or may not answer, but I promise everything that is relevant to the law, business. Obviously, I'm a business owner. I've run the Orlando Law Group for a little over 10 years. I have other businesses as well. So as a global business owner, I have the same concerns that you all have regarding paying employees, paying my rent, and all those sorts of things. But we can ask questions about that as well. And then anything that we don't get to have answered today in this webinar section, we'll either answer in our social media or blog or both. Most of these issues I'm only going to be able to touch on for briefly, considering the scope of the issues that are actually out there. And several of you have already messaged and said that you can't be on because of other conflicts and stuff. And if we have a client meeting or whatever, obviously I want you to take every client meeting you can. This will also be recorded and played over again. So one of the questions that we've been asked right from the get-go is in regards to evictions. And I've already had on both sides of the fence just today. I've got a letter from one of my own landlords saying, oh, please, you better pay your rent. We don't really care about what problems you might be going through, which I thought that was awesome. But then another client of mine who I believe is on this webinar got a letter from his tenant yesterday that said, as a corporation, we've decided not to pay any of our rents anywhere, and it's a big daycare chain. And so there you go. So it's kind of crazy that we're going to, we're going to see that all across the board. We're going to see people who are not paying their rent, and we're going to see landlords who are trying to evict as quickly as possible. Right now in the state of Florida, at least, evictions are on a case-by-case basis, county by county. A lot of the frustration in Florida is that nothing is standard, and I think, unfortunately, nothing's going to be standard. Please remember to keep asking me your questions, by the way. I did write down all the ones that were in Facebook and everything, but put them right in the chat, and if you can't figure that out, then we should probably try to have somebody check. We'll have somebody try to check our Facebook while we're going. You could put it in our Orlando Law Group Facebook chat as well. But so case by case, county by county, all evictions, foreclosures too, we'll touch on that. But all evictions have been stopped at least through the 16th in most of the counties in Central Florida. And in general, in Florida, that's happening. Eventually, they'll start back up again. I think they will be extended again. But foreclosures as well. We'll talk about how the debt relief, that the SBA debt relief and some of the other debt relief programs might help you to pay your rent. And in fact, that is what my landlord, who was so kind and told me I cannot have a rent reduction, but go apply for a loan. We'll talk about that. Yeah, Gretchen, I saw that, and I'm going to talk to you about that too, your question. But pay your rent and pay your mortgage. That should be one of the things, like in your list of things that you're going to pay, that needs to be at the top of it. You will probably get offers to get a reduction in your mortgage or a forbearance or a 3-month or something like that. They did that even with Irma most recently here in the state of Florida. They did that during Hurricane Irma. A lot of mortgage companies let you have a 3-month reprieve. If you have to do it, do it. But if you don't. Mortgage companies do offer that right after that was over and it was time to start again. A great majority of them had messed it up. I had lots of clients calling me saying that they didn't get their forbearance, they had late fees, they had all kinds of problems. So take advantage of it if you have to, but do know that if you're going to either not pay your rent or not pay your mortgage, don't then put your head in the sand like an ostrich. And that's pretty much for all this stuff. Never put your head in the sand like an ostrich. It's not the right way to do anything. I know it's how we handle things as humans, and that's okay. We'll fix it for you, but get out in front with your landlord. I had clients I was talking to the day after the shutdown, especially restaurants and things, like, what should I write to my landlord? What should I tell them? It's a good time to maybe renegotiate your lease if you don't have a good one. If it's your mortgage company and you have to forbear, then document everything. Email them, call them, write down the list of everybody that you talk to. More often than not, the people who at least said, I talked to Jim on the Tuesday morning, and they have notes for me that I could then shove back in the face of the mortgage company or whatever. Those are the people that eventually were able to just get the attorney on the other side to give up and make things right. People who just kind of hope on a prayer, that's difficult. That's not the way to go. In the grand scheme of other things you should pay as well, HOA dues. It still shocks me that at least in the state of Florida, you could be foreclosed on for not paying your HOA dues. A lot of people do not know that. We do represent a lot of HOAs. Several of our HOAs have already talked about giving at least a month's grace and waiving late fees and all that. And that will happen in the short term. But eventually that will stop. And unfortunately, that's because some people take advantage. So again, if you can't pay your HOA dues, then get right with your CAM or your association manager or whatever, make a document, make a partial payment, whatever you can do. If you get into a situation where somebody won't take your money because they put you in a collections or whatever, at least still save the money. In the downturn in 2009, I mean, we obviously worked through a lot of this stuff with clients, and people who saved some money always did better than people who didn't save any money. The stimulus check that's going to come, I'm already seeing memes about it. Don't go buy a purse, do this, do that. Save the money for something, even if you want to just kind of hold on to it. And we're going to talk about that with the business situation as well, like whether you should take out loans and things. But to the extent that if you are going to we're all going to get some sort of money in our pocket, allegedly, maybe. But if you're thinking that you're not going to be able to make ends meet, or you are already in a little bit of a difficult bind to begin with, business or personal, it might be the time to think about a bankruptcy consult before you make any decisions. If you are on the bubble especially, bankruptcy is generally a flat fee. Consults are free. Go talk to a bankruptcy attorney and kind of get your options. There are all kinds of options. And if you're want to keep your house or you want to keep your business, it's just having that kind of just knowing is better than not knowing. Again, the ostrich thing. A lot of people feel a whole lot better after they have these consults because then they at least know, because sometimes it's really easy to say, no, bankruptcy is not for you. It doesn't make any sense. Or yes, it is for you. It makes sense. If everybody gets the stimulus amount that they generally get, it's probably enough to pay for a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. So again, wouldn't you rather know what a good option for you is, even in the business context? And if not, then at least you can kind of prioritize your payments and things, because generally, if you have a little bit of money, we can settle debts and take care of things. Now, as far as student loans, I'm going to touch on that too, because there has been some forbearance on student loans. That's one thing to definitely take advantage of. It looks like till at least the end of September, there won't be any payments on student loans. At first they said no interest, now no payments. But again, nothing is free. If you make some payments, it's going to first go to the interest that was that they had a forbearance on. It's going to take a while to hit that principal. It is going to make your student loan more. We have the discussion in our office. There's some people with a lot of student loans and they say they're never going to pay them off. There are a whole lot of changes in the student loan arena about how to refi and pay them off and that kind of thing. You cannot put them through bankruptcy, but you can refi and things. So again, if you've got a whole lot of student loans and you're just thinking, I'm not going to worry about that right now, again, it's something to put into the mix, because if this time stinks, but if you can use it to come out better on the other side, whether it be through changing your business a little bit or restructuring your finances, it's the time to do that. Somebody asked me to talk about negotiating with the bank. Is now the time. We do have some clients that still from the downturn or still are in some crazy refinance situation or had a first mortgage that they took care of and have a second and third that's still hanging out there. I don't think right now is the right time to do it, but pretty soon it will be the right time to do it, because the banks are a little bit frozen now in time. They're trying to figure out a lot of things. So if you've been saving money to try to deal with a second or third mortgage or some other debt, because we escrow that for clients all the time, it's one of my pieces of advice. So at least you're saving the money somewhere. Probably in a couple of weeks or so, it's time to do that. And again, this is going to be an evolving situation, and we'll continue to address things like that as time goes on. So now, should you use any of these SBA/disaster loans? I think that's what most people are the most interested in right now. And that is kind of changing by the day. But since the CARES Act has passed, we have some clarity. So the first tier of loans/grants that probably every business owner should apply for right now is there's an almost automatic, we'll see, it says you get an answer and potentially the money in 3 days, is a $10,000 emergency grant for businesses. Now, one of the good things that has happened in this CARES Act is that business has been broadened significantly. We've already seen the gig workers, do they count? Do 1099s work? How about self-employed people? A great majority of my clients and or friends that I network with on a daily basis are those self-employed people, and most of this relief is good for them. Now, there's all sorts of tax implications about some of these. So depending on how you're structured, one of these might not make sense for you, but kind of one of the things we preach about, and I hate to see like the stuff that we say, do this, and now you see why you should have done this. If you haven't been a formalized business, giving yourself a salary and doing these things, in all your businesses, however you're doing it, even if it's one parent where money flows up to it, now's the time that if you would have done that, you would have probably made out better. Not too late, but especially if you're going to do a side gig, or now you're going to use the time to start a little business idea that you had, formalize the business, because some of these CARES Act things are kind of proving why you should do that, and not just kind of loosey-goosey mix everything around. I know it's easier, you think calling an accountant and getting all that is expensive, or just you don't want to deal with it, but it will save you money in the end every time. So that 10,000, you could go online, and we'll post some of these links after the webinar. Easy. I did it myself yesterday because I wanted to see what it would look like. I've started all these processes myself because I wanted to see what they look like from for the client side. I'm going to tell you the ones that I'm doing that make the most sense for me, but that's just 10,000. It will come off probably whatever other loan or thing that you get, but it's a 10,000 quick that you can use for whatever you want. So then the other two loans that are basically two types of loans that are left, Florida has a bridge loan, and then the SBA has one that's kind of the emergency loan. And then there's the new CARES Act loan that's more tied to your payroll. So I think there are two different purposes, and they have pluses and minuses. I think you have to decide based upon the type of business you have, which one you're going to use. Also, whether you should take the loan or not, there's a lot of debate going on about that. Like, should I take a loan? I don't need it right now. I'm going to take the loans that I can get. The reason why is because I'll have the income, and if I don't need it, I'll turn around and repay it. If I need it, then it will, if that helps me pay an employee for another couple weeks or another month that might not have a whole lot to do, I'd rather be able to pay my employees. I have to at least pay that one landlord who says he won't give me any reprieve. So there you go. But the one we're going to take is the one under the CARES Act loan. And that is, it has forgiveness completely if you do 1,000 things. So key to this is going to be at least get with your accountant. And if you're an H&R Block kind of person, that's okay. I'm sure at some point they'll be able to advise you on this stuff. But probably speaking to your accountant is a good idea, especially if you're on the bubble. Again, a lot of the networking that we do in the chambers and everything that we do is relationship based, and some people really buy into that and some people don't. But when you're in a crisis like this, now's the time to have a relationship, because I texted bankers this weekend and they texted me right back. My accountant called me 2 weekends ago and said it was Saturday morning and she was calling all of her clients. I mean, you can't replace that. So, I mean, people who were calling yesterday to try to figure out what bank was doing this, I mean, yeah, you're going to be behind the 8 ball because you don't have a go-to person. So, okay, are the grants true grants, or do you need to repay them? This $10,000 does not need to be repaid, and it's the first $10,000. I do believe it'll come off other loans that you might receive later. But the CARES Act loan, so this loan, first of all, you're limited by a few factors. The amount that you could get is 2.5 times your payroll, which payroll is very broad. It includes benefits and other things. Your utilities, your rent payments, a few other little interest things. If you own a building, some things like that. So the debt is limited to that amount. And then later you can ask for forgiveness for it. You do have to ask for forgiveness. It doesn't just automatically happen. And it is a function of how much of that money you use to pay back those expenses. So employee costs, rent, utilities, and a few other things. So assuming you use the money for what you said you were going to use it for, then yes, it is going to be able to be forgiven. I'm sure it's not going to be easy to jump through all those hoops. Again, why you have to have that that group of people around you to help you do it right. There are also some limits for like owners and officers making over 100,000. I haven't quite drilled down on people who take draws as opposed to salary, because some partnerships do draws, not salary. But in general, if you're a service business like mine and your main costs are payroll, I think it's the best option because it's tied to payroll. It is forgivable, and that's where most of my money is going to go. And that's where it's going to go. I mean, my rent and payroll is our main expenses. Now, say you're, somebody asked me if insurance premiums are covered under it. No, it doesn't look like insurance is covered as far as an expense that you can use to get money, or something that you could use to pay for. So that kind of gets us to the next level of loans. Now the bridge loan / SBA emergency loan, which is the first one that came out, is not forgivable. It doesn't look like. I don't think it's going to be forgivable, but it does have a very low interest rate. Andrew asked if 501c6s are able to access. It does look like the 501, the whole 501 family, you do not have to be just a C3 to be able to access the CARES loan that just came out. So again, for my nonprofits, yes. And I know, again, you've got a lot of expenses, but rent, knowing the chamber, Andrew with the East Orlando Chamber, and I got asked another question about 501c6s as well. The chambers, one of their main expenses is paying the payroll, and we want to keep our people on board. Andrew, Dorothy, Kathy, and David, who we love at the chamber. We want to keep them paid, and we want to be able to pay our rent. Now, that landlord's been a little bit more cool about it, but still they're going to want to get paid their rent. So it does look like, yes, Andrew, you can use the CARES loan for the for 501 companies, which again is important to Gretchen, who asked about that for her daycare that she works for. For me, your daycare should probably be applying for that loan as well, because they can use it to pay payroll so that employees who are furloughed and that sort of thing can be able to be paid. Wanda will post the links in our Facebook, the Orlando Law Group Facebook page, and we're going to be doing blogs. We did put out a bunch of blogs last week because there's just so much to know, but we'll be putting out blogs on all this as well, which will be on our website as well. And you can and anybody can email me or message me. Yeah, I know the church preschool is a nonprofit, Gretchen, and you can use this CARES Act loan for nonprofits. It doesn't look like the other one's going to be able to be used for nonprofits, but the CARES Act one definitely can be. So again, for nonprofits who are going to be struggling to pay their workforce, who already probably aren't making that much to begin with, in the nonprofit world, it's something to be thinking about for sure. And I'll tell you, there's a difference in how you get both loans also, but we'll talk about the last one. So the emergency bridge loan, the state of Florida has its own program with its own link that you apply for. And then there is a federal one as well, which is an SBA product. So those have varying tiers of, that's a much more complicated product. It doesn't look like it's going to be forgivable. However, you will be able to get a tax credit off of your taxes for at least the part you pay for employees, it appears. That's going to be like, that's relief. It won't be forgivable, but you'll get some tax credit. Again, your account needs to be in your back pocket, because for some people that might make a whole lot of sense, and for some it won't. Now, if you're a restaurant, say, and you don't really have a whole lot of employees to pay right now, maybe you're paying a cook and a front desk person to handle deliveries, or to handle like some to-go traffic in and out, but you have a $100,000 loan on a liquor license that you've got to keep paying, or you won't have your liquor license when you're done, and you don't have your liquor revenue anymore because people can't come in, that might be the loan for you, because it's not for personnel, but you need to have money for an asset. Manufacturing, things like that. There's a lot of cases where the SBA emergency bridge loan or the state one or both will make a whole lot of sense. In general, it looks like it's at least going to have a year of non-payment. And then the interest rate's going to bump around, but then you'll get the tax credit as well. It's going to be pretty complicated, and I don't know that anybody's totally wrapped their arms around it yet. But again, if you're not paying a whole lot of employees, the CARES Act loan does not make a whole lot of sense. For people who are saying it's going to be an administrative burden to do the loan application, I think that's what that question is. I'm not quite sure. But the CARES Act loan is going to go through a bank. So the SBA stuff, the last loan, the emergency loan, that's already online live. It's not that hard to fill out. I started filling that out to kind of see what that looked like on the back end. I don't know what it'll be like after you submit everything. I know a lot of people got like kicked out on things from stuff I've seen on message boards and a couple other webinars I've attended. But the CARES Act, you will work with your banker. The banks are going to apply for them. Now, the banks are not quite sure what that's going to look like yet. There are some regulations that they've got to learn. They're not going to come out of the gate immediately, but there is a list of the banks that are going to do it, but I've reached out to multiple bankers. It looks like pretty much all the big banks are going to be able to do it. Credit unions, maybe some regional banks probably are not going to be able to do it, although, like I said, there might be a couple credit unions that do. But to the extent that my bankers that I know that I work with are going to let me know when they're ready. Then if anybody doesn't have a banker or they need some help in that regard, message me separately later and I'll get you that information. But again, you have to get your stuff in order so when the time comes to apply for this stuff, you're ready. That's probably at least a couple of years of tax returns, a P&L. Hopefully for a lot of you, this is like, okay, of course I got my QuickBooks file. But if you don't have your QuickBooks file and it's not exactly where it should be, then it's time to get it where it should be. Take some of this downtime for that. All of these loans also have a requirement that actually you were in business before this all occurred. Some people, it's not time to spin up a business and get a loan. But even, they go back to February. So even if you opened up sometime January, February timeframe, you're probably okay. But when they look at your earnings or your payroll for purposes of granting how much loan you could get, they're just going to use the first month of January or January 2020. Otherwise, they look back a whole year. So, and as far as draws, yeah, I think because that's something that I've struggled with too, that I'm going to talk to my accountant about. That's a little bit up in the air, but I think if you suddenly put yourself on payroll now, it's not going to matter because the look back is basically the past year, unless you're a new business and it's the past month. So they're going to look at that. I think we might be able to sneak draws in as payroll, especially depending on how you do them, because you can show that you were paying income tax on those. But making any changes now isn't going to matter. And some people can't do a draw, and they would never be able to do a draw because they're a partnership or whatever. And I don't see them discriminating against partnerships versus S corps. So I think we'll be able to sneak draws in there, but now isn't the time to make any big changes because it's not going to be able to impact things going forward. It just is a backward looking thing. So again, get your stuff together, get your tax stuff together, even if you've kind of been procrastinating. I think everybody saw that all the IRS deadlines got pushed forward. So it's sort of like, oh, no, I don't have to worry about it. No, get it together because you're probably going to need it for something. All of the standards are going to be a lot more relaxed. None of these loans appear to have personal guarantees, which is all good. But still probably eventually they're going to get down to the fine print, and it's probably going to include filing your taxes, filing them reasonably on time. All this SBA stuff is government money. So eventually this will pass and they're going to get back to being the government and getting their money. So also courts, I've got asked about courts and what they're doing. They're kind of in a holding pattern too. All the courts are trying to figure out, again, every county is a little bit different, how to get online and do things like that. Non-emergency things are not happening. I have a lot of clients that are very frustrated about that, and I get it, and I'm sorry about that. But again, if you have an issue going on, don't wait. Let's get with your lawyer, get something filed, get in the queue, because everything's going to be behind. So just like these loans and the other stuff that you're going to do it as quickly as possible, get your documents together as quickly as possible, because once the banks open up the floodgates of how to do, especially the CARES Act loan, there's going to be a lot of people in that queue. I think that it will probably go pretty quickly, but again, if you don't have your stuff in a row, later they're going to come back and want documentation and things, especially your tax returns. Corporate renewal in the state of Florida, I was asked about that too, especially if you were thinking about making some changes or maybe not renewing something that isn't making money for you, or renewing or opening something back up. That got extended, which I've never seen before in 20 years of being a lawyer. It's kind of crazy. So that's got extended through August. So you've got a little bit more breathing room. A lot of our clients have already renewed and will keep bothering you if you haven't, because I can't rest until I know that. The business deadline, well, the business deadlines are all different anyway. The first business deadline had already passed for taxes. Pretty much most people did an extension that I'm aware of that had not filed. So I think you're still going to be okay, Sly. But again, depending on your situation and how you got paid, you need to get with your accountant. All accountants should have done, no matter whether you're an S corp or a partnership, should have applied for an extension now anyway. Because the first deadline already had come and passed before coronavirus, this thing really stirred up. In regards to real estate, we'll probably do a separate webinar on that, because we've been asked a whole lot of questions about that and it's just not clear. We do have a lot of refis that are still closing and some other deals that are still closing. People are out there selling real estate. If you have a specific issue, probably get with your real estate agent sooner rather than later. There is a new coronavirus addendum. It's been circulating around on the Florida real estate contract. I'm sure all real estate agents know about it. If you're in the middle of a transaction, you need to know about it too. Lenders have kind of stopped talking to us in general from the title side. So I think that there is going to be a slowdown on that end. But if cash deals and all that. In fact, our title company underwriter sent us the email yesterday saying you better not close down. You need to keep closing properties, which is kind of the opposite of everything in the world that you're seeing. It was kind of funny to me. But so yeah, that's going to keep going, but I think we're going to have issues with lenders. So you might want to have a backup lender. As we find lenders that are definitely still lending, I'll let you know. Obviously, banks that have SBA stuff going on, they're going to be totally focused on that. Like their business lending is going to be going crazy that way. But closings are still happening, and there hasn't been any kind of definitive decision on whether coronavirus is enough to cancel a contract. You'd hope that everybody would be pretty cool about it, and generally in real estate transactions, they are when there's a problem, but I do have times when people aren't. So if you're gonna get into trouble again, don't do the ostrich, ask for help, ask for some guidance. Putting people on notice that you might have problems goes a long way in general, and almost every time you're gonna have a legal problem. We've also been asked about wills. A lot of people, we put out our newsletter last week, and then a lot of people got to me about wills who hadn't done their wills, and now they're sort of like, oh, one of those other things that we say, do a will, and now everybody's freaking out they don't have a will. We have a couple ways to do that remotely and or as safely as humanly possible. Don't do your own handwritten will. It's like not even having one. So handwritten wills aren't any good. If you do one yourself that you type up, you have to do it a specific way or it's not any good. The witnesses and the notary and all that have to be done a specific way. The notary can't know you, which is a challenge now. So if you're thinking about doing that because you just have somebody that has to do it, then again, message me or something so I can at least give you the highest chance of having it done right. The other thing is there's a lot of things you can do to pass property without a will, and it might be that we could do it all remotely without having to worry about a thing. And remote notary did start in the state of Florida at the beginning of this year, which is really good timing. It's not good for everything yet, but for deeds and closings, we could do all of that remotely. So maybe there's some stuff we could do that doesn't require a will that gets things done the way you want it to. So don't freak out, but get a little bit of advice before you do something, because you might do something that either it's like doing nothing and then you thought you were fine, and or you make things worse. So don't do that. I've been asked questions about IEPs as well. If you have a special needs child, which everybody is having the challenge of online schooling anyway, but if you have a special needs child, it's even more difficult. We do IEP meetings and special needs law. That's one of the things that we do. And it does appear that IEP meetings are going to continue. The school district's going to do them. We've talked to Orange and Osceola at least so far. And they're planning to do them. They're going to do them remotely. Hopefully it'll work out a little bit easier because now testing's done, and we usually in the spring we've got to work around testing. But already if your kid's going to be behind the 8 ball because you don't have the instruction at school that they're used to this last 9 weeks, they thrive on routine generally. At least hopefully we could get your IEP for you done in a way that they can start the new school year running. So if you are one of those people, or that you kind of know you have an IEP, you're not super happy with it, again, be proactive, get with the school. I had seen something about maybe that they were going to relax some of the IDA standards, which is what protects special needs kids in the school. That hasn't happened, and it shouldn't because of remote meetings. It doesn't need to. So that's another thing that you should jump on now, or if you didn't have the time to do it, or now that you're seeing how your child reacts to you, or different types of learning, now's the time to jump on that. Okay, so 1099, contract closed without leaving her income. The bank, okay, yes. So banks are probably going to freeze lending, especially credit lines and things. If this didn't happen to you during the downturn in 2009, be prepared for credit lines to shut down, credit card providers to shut down the credit cards. That kind of gets back to one of my original points, that if you have credit or have money that you could take now, take it. Again, the worst is you don't need it and you pay it back. But if the line is shut down and you can't get it anymore, or all this loan money's gone and you can't get it anymore, and if you just had a little bit more than you would have been able to make it, you don't want to be in that spot. So I think that the person who's the 1099 could probably apply right now as a business for that $10,000 credit that I talked about at the beginning, which is a grant. And she probably can also apply for the CARES Act loan because that allows for that. It allows for 1099 income, and depending on how much the money is needed, that could, even the 10,000 might do it. But again, getting with their banker and getting on those SBA loans is the way to go, because traditional lending probably is not going to be the way to go. I do have a credit line for the firm. I haven't taken it yet. I went back and forth about that. I don't think that'll get closed down. But again, if you've got access to money, it's probably a good time to get it and amass it, and then you could use it a different way. I also got asked about using 401k funds. Part of the tax release in the CARES Act and that came out is using your 401k as well to take it out tax-free, not totally tax-free. Again, that's the time where you need those trusted professionals. Get with your financial advisor. But using your 401k might be something that you could do as well. In general, we tell people never, never, never use it unless it's a totally last resort. I mean, if you're going to take money out of your 401k or file for bankruptcy, generally filing for bankruptcy is the right way to go. We do see people, especially in businesses, that just want to make it work, that take out every penny of everything and borrow from mom and use a friend's credit card and take out the 401k. That is a horrible spot to be in. I get it. As a business, I get it. You want to keep your thing going. But when it comes time for the bankruptcy, then a lot of those people, you can't just use them as creditors, and the 401k money you can never get back. 401k money is always protected from creditors. So if you don't have to use it, don't. If you do have to use it, then get with your financial advisor to minimize the tax implications, maybe to change how you're going to invest it going forward so it could grow as quickly as possible. But that is an option. Generally, taking out 401k money, you have a huge tax penalty, and it does look like that's going to be forgiven. But obviously, you'll have to prove that you used it for coronavirus things and that sort of thing. So again, little quick things that you're seeing in the media or on social media or in a meme or whatever, it's probably got a grain of truth to it, but get with your trusted professionals before you do any of this stuff, because you just don't want to cost yourself something that you didn't have to pay. Annuities, I haven't seen anything about annuities, being able to take money out of annuities. It might come to pass that happens, but I think also annuity companies might not like that very much because of the way that they make money. Now, some annuities, depending on what kind of product you have, knowing just enough about that to be dangerous. Again, please get with your professional, your financial advisor. And if you don't have one, I have some of those to tell you about also if you message me. But there's some annuities that have really awesome products, and you might have an annuity that has some of that stuff. There's some that have bonuses, some that you can take money out of. But right now I've just seen 401ks. And I'll share the grant links for people who missed. I know I keep getting asked this. I promise I'll post them 100 places. But I'm not going to give them out here because everybody's going to get them messed up. I have a question about a will that's outdated. Yes, you can email your docs for updating and changes. We can potentially do a codicil, which we did for a bunch of people in the past couple weeks, a very short change. Your HIPAA releases and powers of attorney. Now, powers of attorney law has changed a whole lot in the state of Florida in the past couple of years. Again, if you're out of commission for a couple weeks and you don't have somebody on your business bank account that could pay your bills, or apply for these loans, or sign something for you so you could get the loan, you've got to have a power of attorney. People don't think about that for their business, but if you're a sole proprietor type, or if it's just you and you're the only one on your bank account, that's a necessity right now to get. Because again, you're in the middle of applying for the loan and then you get sick and you can't sign for it and the time passes and you could have had that money if you had a power of attorney. That's just the kind of stuff that everybody needs and nobody wants to think about, but please, please, please get a power of attorney. It looks, I'm being asked about the forgiveness for, so again, if you're doing the CARES Act loan, they're going backward the past year. So it's looking backward, nothing going forward or nothing that you did for the coronavirus matters. They're going to base it on your payroll for what you did in the last year, or if you're new, the last month. So yeah, nothing because they don't want to penalize you for doing what you have to do. You might want to furlough, you might want to lay off. That again is a whole other set of topics, but you can furlough people. which is a little bit different than a layoff because it allows you to help keep them on medical insurance. Again, probably something that everybody needs to think about doing because just to be prudent, everybody should be cutting costs right now. With the way that the unemployment system is, with the extra $600 a month that the CARES, or extra $600 a week, I keep saying a month because it just seems crazy, but the CARES Act also has $600 a week federal unemployment on top of the Florida unemployment, which is about $250 a week, not very good. But for some employees, it does make sense to at least offer them the option for the unemployment. I know it's gonna be hard to apply and go through that process, but once it's in there, there are some things you could do where you could still keep them on your insurance if they need medical insurance without having to COBRA. That's more along the furlough lines. They cannot work at all, no email, leave laptops at home, everything. There's some very strict rules, but that's some of the kind of stuff you could talk about. And if you use the money that you get from the stimulus or the CARES Act loan to pay for medical insurance for employees that come back within the time period, then yeah, all that stuff that will be able to be forgiven. So again, you kind of have to probably be fluid on a case-by-case basis and change your strategy as things go. But what you did in the past is what you could use for the loan, and the forgiveness is stuff that you use to pay rent and all those other things. So again, if you use the money to pay, if you furlough employees and you still pay some of their medical insurance or all of it to kind of help make things better, that would be stuff that could definitely be forgiven. Getting a line of credit against the equity in your home. Again, I think that's going to be harder to do now. If you lose income, it's going to be very difficult. If you still have an open line of credit, it's probably, again, that might be something that you need to do to take. If it's a homestead house, Florida is homestead, totally protected. So they can't take your house for it generally. But again, then you get into the situation like people in the downturn in 2009, 2010 that took second and third mortgages that were able to renegotiate or refinance or do something with the first mortgage, still have second and thirds hanging out there that won't play ball because the house never came up to the level of value of all the mortgages put together. So, again, if your only resource is your home equity, a home equity line, then maybe yes, but it's not, there's ramifications for those that are going to come years down the road that you might not be thinking about. So if you can do one of these SBA loans, if there's other stuff you can do, you might want to think about that first. There's no taxes taken out of furlough the unemployment. We're going to have to look at how that, the $600 a month we're looking, it's a little bit vague on that, but again, tax-wise, you should do much better with the furloughed, with unemployment in general, but it's going to be handled the same either way. The difference with the furlough is that you could continue people on the medical insurance. That's the main difference. And it's just basically easier. It's easier to call people back. But again, it's not like kind of employed. There's no texting, no working, no nothing. But you can keep them on your medical insurance and maybe some of your other benefits, depending on what your benefits are. We've got pretty robust benefits here. So there's a 401ks and all that kind of stuff. You don't have to restart periods and all that kind of thing. But even most medical insurances, if you have to lay somebody off and you bring them back, it looks like most of them are going to waive the 90-day waiting periods or the 60-day, whatever you have. Again, get with your medical insurance provider so you know kind of what the ins and outs are. That's one of the things we did right away. Don't just guess or hope. Well, a lot of people are asking for all the links, which we'll post. If you have time sharing, if you're in the middle of a divorce, we got a lot of calls about that as well. We try to get out in front of it because at least Orange and Osceola put out an order about how to handle things, but they kept changing it because nobody really knows what to do. But in general now, even if you're sheltering in place and things, if you do it, if you're safe and you follow other guidelines, you're okay. At first they said no switching with shelter in place, but now as long as you're doing it safely, they're moving back from that. Again, do what you think is reasonable. Be reasonable. Don't be Don't be spiteful. Communicate with your other person, even if you're not great communicators. And if you got questions, again, call us. Call your lawyer that's helping you with that case so that they can be proactive and right to the other side. Being proactive and documenting things is kind of key to everything in life, but especially now when you're in a time of crisis, the more you can do, the better. I think I've answered all the questions as they've been going. While my wonderful Stephen, who is helping me make sure I don't miss any of these questions, looks one more time. I have to say, I have to answer this because it's an easy answer, although it's somewhat controversial. So because it's an easy legal answer, everybody's on the internet and on social media asking about whether you're allowed to shut down that church because of their First Amendment rights. Yes, you can. It's such an easy answer. So all of us who go to law school take con law, and we wonder why we take it. And I guess now we know because it's cases like this that come up once in a blue moon. But there is a case in the U.S. Supreme Court case right on point. Free speech is there, but to the extent that your free speech could endanger another, you lose your right to free speech. The case is pretty well known. It's where that you yell out fire in a crowded theater. You cannot go yell fire in a movie theater because then everybody could stampede and it could cause people to be injured. Free speech wise, you should be able to yell anything you want whenever you want, but no, you can't because it endangers people. So I think that any church, so again, if you're trying to use this argument for anything, so I guess there is some value out here. If you're endangering others, that trumps free speech. And obviously that's a gray area and the courts have discretion on that. Police are gonna have discretion on that. They're probably gonna err on the side of the safety of the other people. So it's pretty clear that there's case law on point. So if you're gonna use the free speech argument, think again, because it's actually gonna be a pretty easy one. Payment to the mortgage company. Any stuff that I've answered, I'm not going to answer it again, but I will go back. We have recorded this, so you'll be able to replay it. And I guess we'll put that on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel and all that kind of stuff so you can repay it. And then we'll blog, again, we're going to blog about the most important stuff, and some of it we've already blogged about last week and went into our newsletter. We're going to try to get out as much information as we can. If you're annoyed by it, I'm sorry. Ignore us or click away, but or delete the newsletter, but getting information out there I think is really important. There's just so many questions, and the more questions we can answer, the better. If I can save you, if I can save one person, like from getting a foreclosure or having to file a bankruptcy or having a contempt in court or not having the will that they want, I'm going to do it. So I appreciate everybody's attention. I appreciate all the questions. Keep them coming. Please keep asking questions on our Facebook page and everything else. We probably will continue with these. One of the other things I didn't touch on at all, but we'll be hosting a webinar. Caleb and Nicole Payne of Counsels with Us are going to host, and I'll let you know when that is. We wanted to see how this one worked, but thanks to my lovely Christopher Prati and wonderful Stephen, Carol right here, everything went pretty well, I think. That about using your insurance potentially, business interruption insurance and that kind of thing. Everybody who doesn't have that, again, that's why we say have it. There is some stuff with H1N1. They change insurance policies. They always make them tighter after crisis happens, but there are still a little bit of loopholes and some other things. So they're going to do one on how to potentially use insurance coverage to cover some of this as well. I wouldn't count on that because it's not going to be easy. I would do all these other things first, but we'll put that out there and we'll put out other information as well. If you have any questions or any topics that you want to hear about, we could always do them shorter webinars or Facebook Live or whatever. Again, dialogue is important. The East Orlando Chamber opened a couple groups to try to get dialogue going. But if you have questions, probably 100 other people have it too, please ask us and we'll do our best to answer them in as many platforms as we can. And if you need our help, just give us a call. But thanks everybody. Good luck. I can't wait to see you all again in person. But until then, I would probably need a Zoom happy hour for everybody who came to this because you all deserve a drink for listening to me for this long. Thanks. And I'll talk to y'all soon.